acid yellow sapphire Saxem Big Bang Unico thing that they did.
Hello everyone, welcome back to a long overdue MyWatches podcast episode 20, featuring two guests this time, Thor, and also our permanent returning guest, Woody.
Hello, it's been a while.
Yeah, so right, same thing, Instagram handles will all be displayed at the bottom as well. And if you have not watched our previous episodes of Thor, to check out that one and to see, listen to his story about his watch collecting journey, all right, so for today, mainly we want to discuss, we share our thoughts and opinion about the 2023 LVMH releases, right? Thor has 2 articles released in Fratello as well, so please go check that out, right? So I think, why don't we start with Tag, right? What are the memorable ones that sort of caught your attention?
Good question. I think it was like a mix of incremental changes and I was actually and some big new reissue of the Monza, which is a really cool vintage watch that they haven't really done that much with. I mean, the main thing was the fact that they are choosing to carry on with their solar graph version of the Aqua Racer, which is a 40mm model and it's quite slim and it's titanium. What do you think about the rise of the solar power with the big brands like Tag Heuer and also like Cartier with their solar graph? Do you think there'll be more of it?
I think there will be more of it because it's a great thing to have. I know the Japanese have been quietly doing it for a long time now, but I think it's great that the Swiss brands are kind of taking heed and doing that, because at the end of the day, the one thing that mechanical watches, or at least the Swiss watchmaking industry, doesn't seem to message very well is how fuss-free it can be with a self-winding watch, right? And now they've taken the quartz watches to its natural progression by having it in solar. So it almost gives you a sense that you never have to worry. It'll keep ticking. It'll keep running for a long time to come. And it seems appropriate for the times as well, especially with a lot of more focus on renewables and all that. So I think it works very well as a brand message of embracing a lot of these technologies in the watches. I quite like the fact that the battery lives have become very long in comparison to what they used to be when you talk about solar watches. I remember when G-Shocks just go like 2 years and you got changed the entire solar battery as well. But these are like going like 5 years and 10 years. I think it's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I definitely think that it's more and more people have been, way more acceptive towards quartz watches, and there isn't too much of there's less mechanical snobbery going on, and people are leaning more and more acceptable towards this kind of watches, right? So it'll be good to have, and there'll probably be more to come as well. Definitely.
I think
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you're good.
What do you guys thought about the Carrera, the Panda? It's a yay or nay?
Well, that for me, that's I'm a bit mixed, but I tried on the silver dial 160th. Obviously, this is an incremental diversification on that 39mm Carrera case, which they released first in the 160th anniversary all silver dial, which I tried on, and it fits amazingly. And ironically, it's not today for me. 39mm doesn't feel that small, but when I looked at it in a Tag Heuer boutique in Monte Carlo, it actually looked tiny compared to the other tags, because they're still working on the 43, 44 millimeters. It actually sits really well. And they've done like a sea green version. They did a cherry version last year, but this Panda I think is really good, especially with the black details. I think it works really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think for the likes of, after looking at Woody's, Woody has the old 36mm one, And I have to say, in comparison to that, the 36 is going to be a way better size. As much as I like the 39 with the fancy colors, I'm personally a big fan of the last year's red. I really like that. But I think what we secretly hope for is the smaller reissue of the smaller 36 millimeter. Right, Woody?
Oh, I've got no denying that I have the soft spot for that, and there's confirmation bias and owner's bias there as well, right? I do have a soft spot for the Carrera, but as someone with a tiny wrist, I find that the 39 is actually correctly proportioned, because what I think Tag has done is they've taken the classic proportions of the 60s Carrera, and as they made it 39, they increased the thickness and the proportions to match as well. So all the strong lugs that you see from the Carrera in its original iteration are still remaining in today's version. So I think they've done that really, really well. But I think my bias is the fact that I've now had the opportunity to acquire a 90s re-edition of the 36mm one, and it just wears so well on a small wrist. I wish I had a bigger wrist to be able to pull off the 39s, but I do think the Panda execution is an incredibly safe and commercial bet. That one will sell out immediately because there is no way you can go wrong with a Panda Carrera. There's just no way.
It's funny you shared that you actually have the 36mm 90s version, because I happen to believe that the 90s re-edition of the Carrera, like the one you have, in gold. It's like a huge hidden secret, and that is a gold Carrera chronograph in a perfect 36mm size, and you can get them for like $5,000, and that's amazing.
James,
so obviously,
I'm
not saying that. Sorry, just keep that a secret. Edit that out. But basically.
It's the watch next on my list. That's why I was like, don't find out about it.
I didn't say, but actually, I think I am saying that the 39mm Panda that came out now, it's perfect, but it's perfect compared to the rest of the Tag Heuer lineup, and viewing it as a way to I'm seeing them shrinking, like the Carrera sport chronographs with their 44mm are still huge in the marketplace for some reason, and people still want bigger watches, and this is small. But personally, obviously, the 90s or even the original 60s version in 35, 36mm is perfect. Yeah. So it is a great blend of actually going down in size, keeping the right proportions, but obviously when you see brands like Zenith and Vacheron doing 37mm, 38mm, keeping the original size, you see that it is possible, but it is a bolder move.
Right, yeah, we will get into Zenith real shortly. But to share my thoughts in terms of the Monza, I really, really like that watch, actually. I don't know, because as I progress towards my watch collecting journey, I tend to look for something that's a little bit more unique. And that is actually pretty unique. But I don't think that size is right for me at 42. But it's pretty nice, I would say, for the design and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that one is it is for me too. It's too big. But looking at it like as a separate entity and as a watch per se, the fact that they've got the carbon case, the textile strap, and then it's just transformed into a completely different watch. I mean, you can see the family traits, you can see the heritage, but then they've made it into something like they've made it into something high tech, and they've got the blue sapphire registers with the bright red pointers and that bright red frame on the date window. So it's a brilliant piece of design, and they really brought it into our century, even if they've managed to make it a little bit too big.
Yeah, like you mentioned, that everything is fairly cohesive, right? The date as well, it doesn't look out of place. It looks very much seamless with the entire case, and it's got a nice design, right? So I think it's a very great, it's awesome design, right? It's the same feeling as how I got into the previous Zenith Defy Skeleton as well, and how the date view is very much part of the design rather than something that juts out separately. So So to me, if I were to pick in terms of the best releases from Tag Heuer, this would be my pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got nothing,
No.
no value add to what both of you said. I kind of concur with both of you.
All right. Yeah, any last thoughts for tech before we move on to Zenith?
No, I don't know. I see. Obviously, they also released about 3 different versions of their connected watch. I'm not going to talk about that, but obviously, it is a for some people it might work as even as a gateway to having a watch on their wrist, because it's more of a proper watch than an Apple Watch or a Garmin. Because it's got nice lugs, it's got bevels, it's got the proper chronograph look, even if it's a bit big, but they have a 42mm version. So it's basically, I don't know, maybe it'll work as a gateway drug to someone putting that on and thinking, well, it's better than my Garmin, and it's actually a more like a proper watch than, perhaps moving on to a mechanical watch.
I'm actually very curious to see how commercially successful that watch is, because it's been around many iterations now, and tech seems to be putting the money behind it as well. So it might be interesting how people are adopting it and finding it as their gateway to the luxury watch space as well.
Yeah, I actually like what they did when they first released their smartwatch, the very first one, where you have an option to trade that in to get a special edition Carrera that is only meant for the owner of the smartwatch. So I think that was a brilliant idea, but to be honest, I'm not sure what happened to that entire strategy, but I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. I think it's nice. But so yeah, it was Tag Heuer was pretty incremental, but the Solargraph, ironically, I think the Solargraph is really good. I mean, they advertised it as the perfect, amazing outdoors watch. Which I think it's interesting that they choose to put the solar power into a pure sports watch. The titanium makes it very light. It's 40mm. It's quite thin, so it's a good way. But ironically, the one they released last year with the rubber strap and the black case and that bezel with the carbon with the lume in the bezel was amazing. And this was it. But it's a good everyday sports watch. I mean, maybe it's a good way to I don't know, as an alternative to maybe a smartwatch when you do outdoorsy things. So yeah.
All right. Shall we move on to Zenith then? All right. So for Zenith, I think it's mainly on the DeFi collection. I think there's 3, I think 4 if you consider the extra boutique edition as well of Zenith watches. I think start off with the DeFi Skyline skeleton, right? I'm biased on this because I own the original DeFi skeleton. So to me, it's going to be a big no for this watch for several reasons, right? First of all, in terms of the price point, I think it's comparatively to the first one, it's going to be a very much big increase, a significant increase in terms of the price point. And then second, in terms of the design-wise as well, it's subjective, but I personally prefer the old one, which is more cohesive. It's a 5-point star, whereas this it's like a 4-pointed design. It doesn't have a date, which is may be a good or bad thing depending on you. And I'm still, until now, I'm not a fan of the 110 seconds that it's they're part of this Skyline. So yeah, that's my thoughts about it.
No, I think it's interesting that for me the standout thing was the 36mm Skyline. I thought that was quite good. Even if they, in all the press shots that I received before I did the story, it was all pictured on women's arms. So Zenith has obviously still got this men's and women. 36 is for women, but that 36 with the blue dial I thought was really nice. But I do agree with you on the skeleton, though I do see that they're trying to pick up the 4-pointed star from the Skyline and then carrying it on to the skeleton, even if it's a bit weird, because obviously the main logo is still a 5-pointed star. But the 36mm I thought was quite nice. But it was for me. It was interesting that they chose to focus the main releases on the modern contemporary watches like the DeFi. I don't know when this podcast is being released, but there is a revival coming this week.
Oh, wow.
As well, which is being released separately from the rest of the range, which I think is going to be amazing. And that is it's interesting they're chose to separate it from the Defies, and they're doing it as a separate release, even if we're still in the LVMH Watch Week. And we're now on Monday. It's coming a bit later this week, so I think it's okay to talk about it. But that is going to be good. And the even though I haven't looked at the shots yet, but the and the fact that I don't know, it's a good thing they're managing to keep the it's interesting that they managed to keep the family, the heritage of the El Primero, even in the big watches like the Defy Extreme, which obviously is a big sports watch. But unlike many of the other brands like Hublot, they're managing to keep the El Primero clues, like the overlapping registers on the chronograph, even if it's a big sports watch. But to me, it's too big, but I think it's cool on its own. But I probably not wear it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll echo a lot of what's already been said, but what's interesting is I think Zenith is positioning that Defy skeleton to really fill a gap that what's perceived to be the higher end brands leaving behind in the integrated space, right? Or rather leaving as a price positioning. Because if you were thinking about for the sake of comparison, an Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, right? You're going to have to pay a way lot more for a very simple three-hander. And so I guess what Zen is trying to say is, here's something cool. It's got a nice gimmick and a really high beat rate movement. So you've got almost like a flying sub-seconds, right? And it's got very nice skeletonization. I hear, although I'm not particularly a fan, and I agree with James, I do hear from people who have seen it in person that it is very impressively executed as a design object. So I guess that's the gap that they're trying to fulfill. But it's hard for people like, I think the three of us, simply because we have a point of reference just a few years ago, right? And that's literally something that James can look at in his watch box and go like, I'm glad I got this one. So yeah, and I'm also very happy that they released the 36, because I felt that maybe because it's a case of trying to align to what Zenith chose to release, right? A lot of the mainstream media covered the skeleton first, and it was trickled out later that the 36 was there, but it actually excited a lot of the watch enthusiast space that are starting to, and keeping in mind watch enthusiasts are a smaller subset of the mainstream buyers, right? It created a lot more excitement there, because you could see that they were going back to a size that was a little bit more to what it used to be when brands used to come up with integrated bracelet watches as well. So I'm very excited about that. But now that Thor has revealed that something else is coming, I'm going to have my eyes and ears peeled for the later part of this week. And I suspect by the time that this video drops, it's going to be out anyway.
Because basically, look, if you pull out the Skyline skeleton, if you pull it out and look at it without any Zenith context and without any context from context to the previous model, you basically have an integrated bracelet watch which costs less than the Girard Perregaux Laureato. It costs less than the Hublot Integral Big Bang. It costs less than the Royal Oak. So you have a proper alternative, especially for the ones that are coming into the market now, and then with that, and then you have the additional interest of having the skeletonized dial. So if you look at it like that compared to those other watches, then it is actually really good value. So that's very interesting. But I have a very soft spot for the. Ironically, this is funny. My microphone stand today is a Zenith box. And it's actually a 42mm El Primero that I sold because it's too big. So I've actually got a sweet spot for the 384, 385 angular case revival El Primeros in 37mm.
Those are beautiful.
They're just amazing.
They're really wonderful pieces. I've seen them. I love the case. Just don't really like the leather bracelet. I know what they were going for.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They are. That's a big and there's a big difference in price there. It does belong on the bracelet. I don't know, but the size wise is perfect.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Sorry, James, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was saying that what you mentioned it's truly correct. I think there was I think as a watch enthusiast, you always have two forms of hat, right? So one is like you have to view it from a watch enthusiast angle, and you have to view it in terms of from a business perspective. You have to understand what the brand is trying to do. Right? At the end of the day, it's in a way about the money. As much as we don't want it to be, money matters to them for a business, right? So it makes sense for them to focus in terms of their priority and focus all in terms into the Define and on the El Primero sports line, rather than, I would say, the El Primero that has the strongest history, right? But it makes sense because that's the time of what people are looking for in terms of integrated watches or the thing, and that's the trend. So it makes sense for them to pivot into that direction. The El Primero Sports, it's what people are looking for in terms of a sort of a pseudo Daytona, right? A substitute for that, which also makes sense as a business perspective. I just hope there's a little bit more. There's something for us towards the watch enthusiast side, which I hear it's coming, and personally, I am excited for that. Yeah.
It's funny. It's like if you look at Zenith as a whole with their whole range, compared to something like even something like not a direct comparison, but if you look at Rolex, they have their heritage pieces, and that's it. But Zenith has, and you got look at Hublot, and they've got their big brash pieces, and that's it. But you look at Zenith, they have their classical pieces. They do the 37 millimeters in some variants now. They do the 38 millimeter El Primero. Still some of the 42, and then they have the Defy Extreme, the Skylines. They actually have a very complete range, which I think is very bold this year. When there's predictions of a recession looming and all that kind of thing. But it's I think it's starting quite well. Yeah.
Right.
Have you looked at the? Have you guys looked at the Hublot releases?
Oh, I've just looked at it right before this session.
Yeah.
I gotta put this out. Personally, I'm not too fan of a brand. At least I don't resonate with that design per se. But I would say that the one watch that I would wear from the brand, that would be the Fusion, right? I think it's very clean, right? Of all the other brands, that isn't too gaudy, isn't too in your face. Where the Fusion is actually pretty nice, I would say. And the new releases, it's I like the gold, right? The gold contrast with the black. That's pretty nice. Yeah.
That's so funny. You should say that, because that's exactly the three watches I've got up on my other screen that I'm looking at now with my sideways glance. Is the classic Fusion, and I think they did a fantastic step up with that range, going back to the classic from 1980 by Carlo Crocco, the designer, and you got the 33 millimeter, 38 millimeter, which is just perfect, and then the 42, and they come in like gold and all black and the steel. But the gold in 38 millimeter looks absolutely amazing, and it's just a very minimal, back to basics language of Hublot. And then especially if you juxtapose that to that crazy acid yellow sapphire Saxem Big Bang Unico thing that they did. But this is just a completely different face for the brand, and I think it's really good.
I agree. I like the fact that they had 3 sizes of the identical case and design. I think not enough brands are doing that. It allows a bigger demographic to get involved in the brand, because I think prior to this, whenever you think Hublot, you think big, brash, they're always going to look a bit oversized. And now you've got something that goes like, if you want a really refined Hublot look, you've got sizes to fit, which is something that it's very encouraging to see. I wish more brands would do that, because at the end of the day, if you don't discriminate wrist sizes or gender, right, you will find that there are women who want the classic look of a watch. They can't wear it because they don't produce the size. And at the same time, you've got skinny people like me who would be very happy to be accommodated. But you've also got guys who have much bigger wrists, right? And they really like the big look and all that. And you still cater for that. And you don't have to pick and choose a different design just because your wrist is different. I think that's a great thing.
No, I mean, you see this now. Even some micro brands now do that thing where you actually have a choice between a 39 millimeter or a 41 millimeter with the same watch. And the fact that I think it's a really good move by Hublot, because they are they've been completely missing out on that section of buyers that is now massively on the rise, which are the ones like us that appreciate like a 36, 38 millimeter watch. And they have the heritage, even though it's only from the early 80s, but still 38 millimeter is perfect, and it just gets a completely different demographic onto the brand that get scared away by the sapphire and the integral they released in gold with the bazillion diamonds and emeralds and sapphires, which look completely mad. But then this is like a downplayed, calm, elegant piece, which just looks restrained, even in gold. So I think it's yeah.
I mean, for the viewers' knowledge, do you know that the 33 is in quartz only? I mean, same as per the Fusion line as per usual. And this new release is actually limited edition. It's 500 for each model that I'm looking at right now. A total of 4,500 pieces, right? Available at Hublot boutiques only. Oh, boutiques and retail, sorry. Yeah, boutiques and retail. Yeah. So for those who are keen, do check it out, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep, and of course, check out Thor's article when it drops as well.
Yeah. No, I'd say get your shoes on for that 38 millimeters, because that's amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yep. So, in terms of that, I have nothing much to say about the other bigger watches as well. The Big Bang and everything. It's if you like the pieces that really stands out, these are the pieces for you. If you're looking for something maybe like a replacement for Richard Mille, maybe there's something for you. But that's not my cup of tea.
It's just
comment on.
I don't know. They're just too big and too bold. I mean, even if it's especially now in Europe, where you have this spate of watch robberies in London and Amsterdam and Paris, where you can't even wear a standard Submariner without risking getting stabbed and robbed, and your car stopped and they're smashing your window. So it's like, I know it's not, but the stealth wealth of those gold smaller versions, I think it's amazing. And I mean, the black one, even the old black one with the black DLC case with the 38 millimeter would be brilliant. So I don't know, maybe they're doing the 500 pieces just to test the waters, and I think they're going to be a big success.
Yep. So I mean, it's 500 for the new Fusion. The old Fusion is still available, so there's another option for you guys out there as well, right? I think that pretty much covers in terms of Hublot. Probably the last thing that we can maybe just quickly talk about it is Bulgari. In terms of, I think they had 4 ladies' watches released in this week. None of them in terms of for men. It's very much. We'll flash out the images for the ones in YouTube. It's all the pieces that it's with a lot of diamonds and jewelry expect to it. Yeah.
Well, it's like Bulgari is, it's they are a jeweler. That's what they started out as in Rome, even though all their watch division now is based in Switzerland. And Fabrizio Buonamassa Stigliani, my wife is Italian, so I can pronounce his name, is he's now actually moved to Switzerland from Italy and is based there, and he's an amazing designer. And the ladies pieces that they brought out, the Diva's Dream and the stuff with all the gemstones, they're amazing pieces per se, and you just have to look at them as amazing pieces of design, even though if they're not really meant, they're not watches to tell the time, but they are beautiful, and they're beautiful pieces of jewelry that just happens to contain a watch, really. Yeah.
I'll just go as to say I'm not the target market, so I'm ill-equipped to comment. But they are beautiful pieces of art, so I have to concur with Thor on that one.
Yeah. I mean, I can't face it any better as well. That's the initial thoughts that I have. It's, if you talk about design-wise, as an art piece itself, I think it's beautiful. It's like you mentioned, it's a jewelry first, then watch, and I mean, regardless of that, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, to look, I don't know. They they perhaps they I think they are. I think they're saving some Octo Finissimo pieces for the Geneva Watch Days, to be honest, after the summer, because maybe I don't know, maybe testing the water, seeing how this year is going to pan out. But obviously the Octo Finissimo is an amazing range. They managed to stretch it, and every other piece they bring out, they win an award. Obviously, it's still a 41mm watch, but it's razor thin and it sits incredibly comfortable on the wrist, which funnily has made the original Octo, which is not thick, it's just a little bit thicker. Like on the second-hand market, it's like a huge bargain. But that's a different story. And that even came in a 38mm. So that's like the pro tip for the pre-owned market there on the Octo, the original Octo, which is now being forgotten. The Octo Finissimo is amazing, without a doubt. But I think they just they focused on the ladies ones this time, and they'll be back really strong for the Geneva Watch Days.
Yep, I think that's one of the top integrated watches for me as well. But it is a little bit like I can't fit it, so I'm not even thinking about it at the moment. Yeah.
So I was just wondering, maybe since we've pretty much covered the brands, what they've already covered, right? And we've kind of alluded throughout our conversation what we still hope to see. I think, Thor, what you're also saying is there could be more coming on the horizon. I think the brands are no longer doing like once a year sort of thing. It's more like later part of the year, there's more coming. And obviously, there's a really huge teaser on what Zenith is coming up with. So I thought I'll do a quick round to ask every one of you what you're still hoping to see from LVMH brands, right? If anyone at all, before the year's up. Before 2024, in that sense.
Ooh, I'll go first. The dream, if you're going to shoot for the stars, a small fittable size monocle from Tech. That would be my absolute preference. Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that got me thinking. I mean, I'm looking at those. I'm looking at the expensive limited edition fusion pieces. I might still not have a Hublot, but that just really tickled my fancy. I'm a very big fan of the heritage models from Zenith, and when I sell this 48mm one, I might go for the A384, A385. But they've been very good at releasing collaboratory pieces and spreading them out more throughout the year, unlike some of the others. But so I'm basically I'm looking forward to more of that. And if the Hublot Classic Fusion becomes part of the range, especially that 33, 38mm, I think that'll be a great move. Yeah.
Well, I'll round it up very quickly. I have no objection to whatever James said. I'm actually very worried about what Thor's reveal is coming out this week, because I am quietly a big fan of the Revival series of Zenith as well. I guess if there was some way for Zenith to still maintain a line of watches that doesn't really require the sub-seconds to really be the 1/10 second, right? I find that to be a nice touch. I really like the limited range that they did 1 or 2 years ago before they pivoted to all using that particular movement, right? Where you had that perfect blend of the old dial, albeit in precious metals, but still very much the older movement. I was just wondering if they will ever be able to bring that back without needing the seconds hand to rotate 6 times every minute, right? I think that would be a lot more of a functional piece, but I'm a little bit of a purist, so I'm a bit biased that way. Naturally, I'd also like a smaller Monaco. I also like it for the old Octavia to make a reappearance, but then again, I'm revealing all my cards now. I'm just a sucker for old stuff.
I personally wish that Zenith could also focus more on the, way higher horology pieces. I think they had some great in terms of annual perpetual calendars and stuff like that. I think that could probably deserve. I mean, those deserve some attention as well, and they could potentially bring it back in for a higher range. Yeah.
Well, no, that's a good. I mean, I'm basically waiting for it. If if I were to pick one watch that I wish would get released from one brand, without even talking about the LVMH, like this year, maybe at the Geneva Watch Days, that would be for me, one of the main standout pieces of the whole of 2022 was the Vacheron Constantin 222 integrated bracelet, which was just like a knockout piece. And I mean, we at Fratello, when we did the editors pick their top 5 favorites of the year, I think three of us had that on our list as one of the releases. And I mean, if Vacheron Constantin actually chooses to release that in steel, that is going to like blow so many people's minds, and it's going to sell, and it's going to outsell the overseas. which is probably answering my own question, which is probably why they haven't released it. Yeah.
I mean, releasing it is one thing. Being able to purchase one is another thing as well, right?
That's a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
I can't do much better than Thor's recommendation, so James, I'd recommend you wrap up. Because that's the best as you can.
I think perhaps that I actually thought of one thing that we can do to close this off. What do you think would be the prediction of 2023? Right? Do you think it's people are going to be more focusing on minor improvements because of a slowdown in terms of watches? Or do you think that smaller size is coming back strongly, or the integrated bracelet are still going strong? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I get the feeling. I'll just go very quickly, but I think we are going to probably see a little bit more of the safe bets, because I'm guessing that most of the business decisions regarding 2023's watches was made on the back of 2022 and the uncertainties that were there. I reckon most brands would stay a little bit on the safer side and probably play more homage to what they already have in their catalogs, and maybe go along the downsizing bits. I'm not expecting a lot of major innovations happening this year. Perhaps they might come up towards the year end, but I don't think there'll be a lot of it. We've been spoiled for choice in the past year or so with all the pent up innovations that came up after COVID, right? And I do expect 2023 to be a little bit quieter from a design and innovation perspective, a little bit smaller, a little back to the classics, to just be safe commercially. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I think it's important to look at what Tag Heuer did at LVMH, because they're such a big brand, they're such a commercial brand, and they are more dependent than the others on volume. And looking at them with the incremental changes, like the Aqua Racer with the Solar Graph, which was like basically keeping the same design, the same soft sandblasted titanium like they had last year, slightly different lume, but with the Solar Graph movement, that it's a safe choice, but at the same time opening up to another market. And for the vintage, it's going for the Carrera and basically releasing a color change on the dial. It looks fantastic, but it is a dial and purely visual iteration, the same rally strap they had on the previous one, and playing it safe. And maybe because they sense the vintage inspired retro market is actually going to slow down a bit. Maybe that was the same as Zenith, because they're now focusing 80% on the modern pieces. So maybe the whole vintage thing is going to slow down. I don't know. Obviously, I think it's a combination of that and the fact that they think it might be a really quiet year. So we'll see.
In my thoughts, I think it's going to be a quiet year as well. I think people are going to look at what are the, in a way, economical way to get tractions of marketing, or in terms of even sales, right? And I think what the Moon's watch has tell us, I think that's probably going to be replicated in some form or another, in that form of strategy. And they know that, okay, we can get more people into the brand in a very cheap way, and towards that sense. So I think more brands are going to, in a way, have that in the back of their head when they do their planning for 2023. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I think that pretty much wraps it up for this episode. Once again, a big thank you for Thor for joining us in this special episode, and hope to have you more. I'm back again for more episodes in the future. All right.
My pleasure.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.